Arthur Conan Doyle, The Sign of the Four. Chapter 3. In Quest of a Solution. It was 5:30 before Holmes came back. He was bright, excited, and in a very good mood. In his case, this mood often changed with times of deep sadness. "There is no big mystery in this matter," he said, taking the cup of tea which I had poured for him. "The facts seem to allow only one explanation." "What? You have solved it already?" "Well, that would be too much to say. I have found an interesting fact, that is all. It is, however, very interesting. The details are still missing. I have just found, by looking at old copies of the Times, that Major Sholto of Upper Norwood, who was in the 34th Bombay Infantry, died on the 28th of April, 1882. I may be very slow, Holmes, but I do not see what this means." "No? You surprise me. Look at it like this, then. Captain Morstan disappears. The only person in London he could have visited is Major Sholto. Major Sholto says that he did not know he was in London. 4 years later, Sholto dies. Within a week of his death, Captain Morstan's daughter receives a valuable gift. This gift is then sent every year, and now it ends with a letter which calls her a wronged woman. What wrong can it mean, if not losing her father? And why do the gifts begin just after Sholto's death, unless Sholto's heir knows something about the mystery and wants to make up for it? Do you have any other idea that fits these facts? But what a strange way to make up for it! And how strangely it is done! Why does he write a letter now and not 6 years ago? Also, the letter speaks about giving her justice. What justice can she have? It is too much to think that her father is still alive. There is no other wrong done to her that you know about." "There are problems. There are certainly problems," said Sherlock Holmes thoughtfully. "But our trip tonight will solve them all. Ah, here is a carriage, and Miss Morstan is inside. Are you ready? Then we should go down, because it is already a little late." I took my hat and my heaviest stick, but I saw that Holmes took his revolver from the drawer and put it into his pocket. It was clear that he thought our work tonight might be dangerous. Miss Morstan was wrapped in a dark cloak, and her gentle face was calm but pale. She must have felt some worry about the strange task we were starting, but she controlled herself perfectly and answered the few extra questions which Sherlock Holmes asked her. "Major Sholto was a very close friend of my father," she said. "His letters often mentioned the Major. He and my father were in charge of troops at the Andaman Islands, so they spent a lot of time together. By the way, a strange paper was found in my father's desk, and no one could understand it. I do not think it is important, but I thought you might want to see it, so I brought it with me. It is here." Holmes opened the paper carefully and spread it out on his knee. He then examined it very carefully with his magnifying glass. "It is paper made in India," he said. "At some time it was pinned to a board. The drawing on it seems to be a plan of part of a large building with many halls, corridors, and passages. In one place there is a small cross in red ink, and above it are the words 3.37 from left, written in faded pencil. In the left corner there is a strange sign, like 4 crosses in a row with their arms touching. Next to it is written in very rough writing, 'The Sign of the Four, Jonathan Small, Mahomet Singh, Abdullah Khan, Dost Akbar.' No, I must say that I do not see how this connects to the case, but it is clearly an important document. It has been kept carefully in a pocketbook because one side is as clean as the other. It was in his pocketbook that we found it." "Then keep it safe, Miss Morstan, because it may be useful to us. I am starting to think that this case may be much deeper and more complex than I first thought. I must think about my ideas again. He leaned back in the cab, and I could see from his serious face and empty look that he was thinking hard. Miss Morstan and I spoke quietly about our trip and what might happen, but our companion stayed silent and secret until the end of the journey. It was a September evening, and it was not yet 7 o'clock, but the day had been gloomy, and a thick, wet fog lay over the big city. Dirty clouds hung low over the streets. Along the Strand, the lamps were only weak spots of light, making small circles on the wet pavement. The yellow light from the shop windows shone into the damp air and made a dark, moving glow over the busy street. To me, there was something strange and ghost-like in the endless line of faces that passed through these narrow lines of light. Sad faces and happy ones, tired and cheerful. Like all people, they moved from the dark into the light, and then back into the dark again. I am not usually sensitive to such feelings, but the heavy evening, together with our strange task, made me feel nervous and sad. I could see from Miss Morstan's behavior that she felt the same. Only Holmes stayed above such small influences. He held his open notebook on his knee, and from time to time he wrote numbers and notes in the light of his small lamp. At the Lyceum Theatre, the crowds were already thick at the side entrances. In front, a steady line of carriages arrived, dropping off men in formal clothes and women with shawls and jewelry. We had just reached the third pillar, which was our meeting place, when a small, dark, active man dressed like a coachman spoke to us. "Are you the people who come with Miss Morstan?" he asked. "I am Miss Morstan, and these two gentlemen are my friends," she said. He looked at us with sharp and questioning eyes. "You must excuse me, miss," he said in a firm and stubborn way, "but I was told to ask you to promise that none of your companions is a police officer." "I promise you that," she answered. He gave a sharp whistle, and a street boy brought a carriage and opened the door. The man who had spoken to us climbed up to the driver's seat, while we sat inside. We had hardly sat down before the driver hit the horse, and we rushed away quickly through the foggy streets. The situation was strange. We were going to an unknown place for an unknown reason. Yet our invitation was either a complete trick, which seemed impossible, or we had good reason to think that something important depended on our journey. Miss Morstan stayed calm and strong as before. I tried to cheer her and entertain her by telling stories from my adventures in Afghanistan. But to be honest, I was so excited about our situation and so curious about where we were going that my stories were a bit confusing. Even now, she says that I told her a strange story about how a gun looked into my tent in the middle of the night, and how I fired a double-barreled tiger cub at it. At first, I had some idea of the direction we were going, but soon, because of our speed, the fog, and my poor knowledge of London, I became lost and knew nothing, except that we seemed to be going very far. Sherlock Holmes, however, always knew where we were, and he quietly said the names of places as the carriage moved through squares and narrow streets. "Rochester Row," he said. "Now Vincent Square. Now we come to Vauxhall Bridge Road. We are going toward the Surrey side, it seems. Yes, I thought so. Now we are on the bridge. You can see parts of the river." We did see a short view of the Thames, with lamps shining on the wide, quiet water. But our carriage moved on quickly and soon entered a confusing network of streets on the other side. "Wordsworth Road," said my companion. "Priory Road. Larkhall Lane. Stockwell Place. Robert Street. Cold Harbor Lane. It seems we are not going to a very fashionable area." We had, in fact, reached a dark and unpleasant neighborhood. Long rows of dull brick houses were only broken by the bright and flashy lights of pubs on the corners. Then came rows of small houses, each with a tiny garden in front. And then again, endless rows of new brick buildings, the huge city spreading out into the countryside. At last, the carriage stopped at the third house in a new row. None of the other houses were lived in, and the one where we stopped was as dark as the others, except for a small light in the kitchen window. When we knocked, however, the door was opened immediately by an Indian servant wearing a yellow turban, loose white clothes, and a yellow belt. There was something very strange about this Eastern figure standing in the simple doorway of an ordinary suburban house. "The Sahib is waiting for you," he said, and as he spoke, a high, thin voice came from a room inside. "Bring them in to me, Kitmutgar," it cried. "Bring them straight in to me."